Have you ever tried to quit drinking and thought, why is this so hard? Shouldn't it be easier? If you have felt stuck or frustrated or like you're failing, the truth of the matter is you're not broken. Quitting alcohol feels harder than it should because of some very, very real reasons. And in today's episode, I'm breaking them down and sharing what actually makes it easier. Hey, friend, welcome to Sober Vibes. I'm your host, Courtney Anderson. I'm a sober coach, author, and your go to guide with living life without alcohol. I've been alcohol free since 2012, and by far it's the best decision I've ever made in my life. Now I get to help other women live life without alcohol and thrive in sobriety. Here you're going to find quick sober tips, real talk, and encouragement to build confidence, handle cravings, and really actually enjoy your alcohol-free life. If you're sober curious, ready to go all in, hit subscribe and let's vibe sober together. Welcome back to the Sober Vibes podcast. I am your host and sober coach, Courtney Anderson, and your go-to guide of living a kick-ass life without alcohol. You are listening to episode 244. Thank you, good people of the world, for tuning in. So I want to share a little story. In the moderation cycle that I was in, because remember, I haven't had a story where it was like I quit drinking alcohol and then like a couple months in I slipped, and then a couple like years in I slipped. I haven't had that. But what I did have was I had a 4-year process of the moderation cycle, which I do truly believe that so many people get into, okay, before they quit drinking for good, because you really do try to control it and go back and forth, right, until you can't. So remember, being in this 4-year moderation cycle, I felt like a failure when I couldn't control alcohol. When I mean by that was there would be times that I would be like, okay, no shots, right? Make sure that you eat. And then I would always come back to where I started originally of putting all of these rules. And that's really what the moderation cycle comes down to. It's all of these rules you put on yourself to try to fit a square peg in a round hole. But the truth of it is that alcohol you cannot control once you already have a problematic relationship with it, right? But really in this is once I understood the reasons of why it felt so hard and learned in the process, eventually when I quit for good, these tools, that everything changed for me. So if you're sober curious or in your first 30 days or you tried white knuckling it, this episode is definitely for you, and it will give you more clarity and way more encouragement to keep going, right? And as always, before we dive in today's episode, if you try to quit and it feels harder than it should, you don't need more willpower, right? So let's create a plan together that actually makes it easier. You can apply for my one-on-one coaching below. The link is in the show notes, or you can even look into my sobriety circle. That is my monthly coaching community, and there is a whole group of women in there ready to support you too on your alcohol-free journey. So the links are in the show notes below, and yes, let's dive into it and this coaching episode. As always, before I get started, slide into my DMs and let me know if this episode helps you in your journey, or if this is something you needed to hear. I always love hearing from you and how this podcast has helped. And if this podcast hasn't helped you, you don't need to slide into my DMs and tell me that. Thank you. And also, too, it is October 3rd as this episode airs, and it is my birthday on Sunday. So I will think of a little giveaway to do on Sunday for my birthday. I'm turning 43. And look for it on the Sober Vibes Instagram page and my Courtney Anderson Instagram page, okay? We will do a giveaway. And I don't know what that's going to be yet, but I'll think of it. And it will be there on Sunday. So check out the podcast or my Instagram page on Sunday. All right, good people of the world. So reason number 1, all right? Alcohol changes your brain chemistry. And I just want to keep I want some of these episodes, if you've noticed what I've been doing in season 7, if you've been here for a while and listening, I want this to keep repeating because sometimes you need to hear some shit at least 7 times. I think that's it. Like a human being needs to hear something at least 7 times before it clicks. And I want this to click for you. All right. So the brain chemistry thing is real. It's science, all right? So alcohol legit rewires your brain. It messes with your dopamine, your GABA, and your serotonin, all right? All the chemicals that regulate the mood, the stress, and the pleasure. So when you stop drinking, your brain feels out of balance, out of whack, right? That's why you might feel restless, irritable, or anxious in the beginning. And it's not weakness, it's chemistry. And with time and support, your brain does heal, okay? And also remember too, you get into that dopamine hit where you want that. But I'm saying before the alcohol, a lot of us as well, there was something before the alcohol, especially for women, there was usually food. So if you had a problematic relationship with food, and then you stopped that or maybe passed on then to alcohol, it was because you were replacing one dopamine hit slash addiction with the other. And why I share this too is because so many women especially have had that issue with food. And even too, if you are sober now and you notice that there was like some transference addiction, right? And that the sense of now you feel like you are seeking that dopamine hit in some other way, right? Going using another substance or person, whoever it might be, or what it might be, that is very common. I also share this in my book. So make sure you check out my book too, Survive: A Guide to Thriving Without Alcohol in Your First 3 Months. So just know that again, why when you give up booze where you're like this should be easier than it is number one, because it is creating change in your brain. Nowadays you're starting to hear more and more people talk about the brain health with alcohol, and to why even to if some people have just given it up because they're like mentally I want to feel sharper. I mean there is reasons for everybody to quit drinking alcohol. Everybody should quit drinking alcohol. But if you aren't, that's not, it doesn't mean that I'm judging you. It's just alcohol is very, very bad and toxic and does the most. So again, it changes your brain chemistry, and remember it. It is rewiring your brain. Good news though is once you stop, you can start rewiring your brain in a more healthier way. Okay. Reason number 2, you've been using alcohol as your main coping tool. I do believe this is something that when we started drinking, it wasn't like we're like, oh my God, I'm going to use Sauvignon Blanc to just down my problems away. I'm going to use this because it is going to be my best friend, my therapist, all of it, right? Like we didn't go into this being like, this is going to help me cope with life. Nobody did. Nobody did. Nobody who picks up alcohol is, man, I hope I have a drinking problem. No. Or that you think you're going to get a drinking problem, right? Because you have it and you're like, oh, that was really fun. That was really innocent. This is maybe what I did at this period of my life. This was an evolution. But then when it starts forming and becoming something a little bit darker, because we all go through dark periods of our lives in different seasons, then this is where that relationship starts to turn with alcohol and too with your brain chemistry, right? So yes, it was about the fun, right? Initially, right? But now it's turned into, as your drinking in your life has evolved, the relationship with alcohol has evolved into something that now really isn't about the fun. It's it is how you handled stress, celebrating wins in your life, celebrating coping with grief and loss, and even to become something of filling up your boredom, because that is what you have been programmed within yourself in society to believe, that drinking then becomes that you're doing something, right? So it really does take over in that way. So when you take alcohol away, it feels like you've lost your one and only tool. That's why this feels very, very hard. You're not just quitting drinking, you're learning how to live differently. And drinking becomes one of those habits where it is one of those extremely bad habits. I mean, I always knew smoking was awful, right? I didn't realize, and I just say this with smoking cigarettes. And I don't know what it is about life lately, but I mean, I have been thinking about those cigarettes the last couple weeks. And maybe it's because we've changed now into the season of fall, but as I have always mentioned, if the world ever goes down, I am going somewhere. Where do they sell cigarettes now? And buying a pack of Parliament Lights and just chain smoking. I'm not going to do it today. The world's not going down, but it's the change of season for sure. And to me going through something difficult with my dad, a cigarette would be nice, but I'm not going to do it. So my point of this is that I realized when I quit smoking cigarettes, okay, I was like, holy shit, I have so much more time on my hands. I did not realize how much I coped and rewarded myself with cigarettes until I stopped. And there was like no more, all right, I cleaned the house, I'm going to go out for a smoke, right? There was none of that. Like taking a break at work, I was going to smoke. There was none of that where it was like, oh my goodness, that was such a habit, and one I didn't realize how big it was until it was gone. The same thing's going to happen to you with when you quit drinking or you have and you're reflecting back to be like, oh wow, that was in my day-to-day life and that I rewarded myself. So again, you're learning how to relive differently and that takes some time. But you can build new tools and real ones that actually work and don't leave you with guilt, shame, or hangovers, right? Number three, why it feels so hard too is a lot of people try to do it alone. And a lot of people don't want to ask for that help because one, this is still a shameful topic. Two, you're going to be looked at, well, you can do this, this, and this, and this. What do you mean you have a drinking problem, right? You're gaslit to believe that you could never have a drinking problem when you're sitting there being like, no, bitch, I have a drinking problem, right? And it doesn't make you less than a person. This is just how, again, how that substance is designed, right? And a lot of people who I see, and I did it alone. I did it alone too. That first probably what 2 years, I really white knuckled it. That's why you hear me too saying like with people like when you're done white knuckling it, because once you get help, the help does change if you're open to it, right? So help and support does change, and most people like to try to quit in secret and without support, or people don't want to then end up talking about it because they just want to move away from it and sweep it under the rug like it never happened. And then in that, you start then realizing, oh, I had more of a problem than I thought. And you cannot sweep this one under the rug because it will come back, and it will usually come back by you drinking again, right? And it comes down to a lot of ego and thinking that you just need more willpower and that you will be fine. But willpower always runs out, and accountability and support do not. So when you're surrounded by people who get it or you're working with the coach, it stops being about really truly fighting it alone in your head and starts being about building that momentum with real strategies that support you, that not support your neighbor who had a problem and they told you what worked for them. Like it's actually about supporting you and what's going to work for you, right? So what does make this easier, right? These are the three things: understanding the science so you stop blaming yourself and building healthier coping tools that relieve stress. And this is what you have to listen and figure out for yourself. So getting support, you're not carrying the weight alone, right? When those three pieces come together, quitting alcohol can stop feeling like a punishment and start feeling like freedom. And especially too in the beginning, you really truly think that when you quit drinking, like you're being punished. It's like, why me? Why did this happen to me? Why can't I drink like my best friend Liz? Like, why can't I drink like my husband? He can have one or two. And like, why do I have to have a problem? And that's where I want to challenge you to really look at this is if you're not there yet or in the beginning stages or even in that first year of stop looking at it like what is wrong with me and what you're missing out on and look at it of what the fuck you're about to gain, because you are about to gain so much more, even though it's going to be uncomfortable and you're going to go like this and ride the waves of that first year especially, and even to in that second year. You ride the waves in life in general. You're just taking alcohol out. You're taking alcohol outside or out of the equation. I did a podcast today, which will be airing. I interviewed a pal of mine, and that episode's going to air October 10th or October 17th. And she was talking about, she's at 13 years of sobriety. And we were talking about this, where she was just like, I definitely have gone through hard periods. She was like, but still to this day, it is a lot easier to manage without then adding drugs and alcohol into the mix. And she's so very true. That's correct. Like, you still have the ups and downs of life, but when you take this out, it becomes a lot easier, right? So definitely, I hope this one helps you on why this feels more difficult and what the science is behind it and how this has played. Because not only does it take over your brain, but then you are developing such an addictive habit. And I know people don't like to say that they were addicted to something, because then again, that goes with the ego, right? Of you really have to kind of surrender to that and be like, no, this kind of has a stronger hold on me than I thought. But everybody gets to the point of quitting for good when they are good and tired, and when that is for them. And even if you're in those stages of those last couple of years of your drinking career, where you went from a daily drinker down to a person who has only drank 2 times this last year. I want you to focus more on those days that you didn't drink compared to those 2 days out of the whole year. Of stop focusing on, oh, I didn't make it to, I slipped on those 2 days, because again, this is so habitual. And sometimes people don't slip because something catastrophic happened to them. Sometimes they just slip because you were simply built on autopilot when you have had the substance in your life for the last 20 plus years. And that was your go-to, right? So if you've tried to quit before and it has felt impossible, again, please hear me. You are not broken because people feel like there's something wrong with them. You don't need more willpower. You just need tools and the support to help you this time around, right? So quitting is going to always feel hard at first. And it might feel easy for some. And then a couple months in, then it might be like, oh my God, this is hard. My pink cloud burst. What do I do now? And I have to understand at that time, then you just take it and you roll with it and you keep going forward. And doing that without alcohol and telling yourself without alcohol is really going to help you. If I add alcohol to the mix today, it is only going to make my life harder. It's not going to make my life easier. So it makes it easier for a couple hours, and then you're up again at 3 a.m. with the sweats and maybe the spinsies and with a lot of regret and shame. So with time in this, it gets lighter. And one day you're going to look back and realize you built a life that you don't want to escape from anymore. Because again, going back to the drinking issue and going back to how people use it as a coping tool, it's like at some point it turned dark for you, and it was used to cope with what, right? So it's your job to figure out that what. Why did you start using it more than it needed to be? Was it because you were in postpartum? Was it because maybe you're married to an asshole and you hate him? Was it because you didn't figure, was it that your life didn't end up how you wanted it to? Was it not dealing with undealt childhood trauma that is coming to the surface now, and or then whenever, add your timeline, right? Is it because you're lonely? Are you an empty nester and the kids are all gone, and now as a mom you're like, what the hell do I do now with myself? It always, when I have coached empty nesters now as a mom, it does. I get it with the empty nesters. I don't know what it's like to be an empty nester because now I'm on the other side of it, but my heart always does go to women in that position because now being a mom, I don't even want to think about the day that the young dictator flees flees the house and what and how that would look like, because when you do get so programmed to taking care of a child and you have that child, it is just built in the fabric of your beings, right? And then too, with the empty nester, and then it can become exciting because then you get to rediscover who you are. All right, so figure out why. I'm not asking you to live in trauma at that point, but just figure it out of why. Like, why did this go dark? Because sometimes figuring out the why is going to help you with then needing the tools and what type of tools and support you need now to move forward and not use alcohol. All right. So again, if you've tried to quit and it feels harder than it should be, you again don't need more power, you or willpower, you need more tools and more support. So check out my coaching below. I did have somebody reach out in text. I just want to say this. If you text the show, I cannot text you back. So if you are looking for coaching, just look in the show notes and there will be one-on-one coaching with Courtney, or apply to work with me below. And that information about coaching is in that. So my apologies to the person who reached out and texted the show. I don't have a way to respond back to you. All right. And then in next week's episode, you're not going to want to miss out because we are going to talk about alcohol-induced anxiety and what to drink instead of alcohol for anxiety relief. I'm excited about this. So I will share why alcohol fuels anxiety, what calming drinks actually help, and how to soothe your nervous system without pouring a glass. Good people of the world, as always, thank you for listening. If you haven't yet, please rate, review, and subscribe to the show. And remember, if you screenshot me that review and email it to me at sobervibes@gmail.com, I will then give you access to my workshop that I have just completed. All right. As always, keep on trucking and stay healthy out there.